Hello, I thought I would go over one of the new Additel advanced digital pressure gauges. To use the term advanced is something understated. This gauge has absolutely everything, and I'll run through some of those key features. This particular model is 100 bar and is 0.02% of full-scale accuracy. It's also available in 0.05% of full-scale accuracy, and it is also available in 0.1% of reading. Now, one of its claim to fame is that it has a color touchscreen, and it's designed for a cell phone type environment where you're very used to this interface of touching and adjusting the screen. You may be wondering why we're reading a pressure of 971 hectopascals when we're not connected to anything. Well, one of the other unique features of the 685 and 686 series is that every gauge may be both absolute pressure and gauge pressure. So of course we're looking at absolute pressure right now, and we can see that it's a fairly dismal day. We have a low pressure. The gauge is rated IP67, so you're aware that it's going to be fine in an outdoor environment. It charges on USB-C and also allows you for data output and for firmware update on USB-C. Let's start at the very beginning. If we swipe left or right, we can see that the digital gauge can become an analog style gauge, which is a great feature if you are used to this display, and it's quite intuitive. At the top of the screen is a default bar, somewhat like a taskbar on Windows, so we can see the basic information. So we can see we have date and times as the control center. The charge is quite low, 19%, and the current barometer, because to achieve the absolute pressure, a built-in barometer allows for absolute reading. So we're reading an absolute pressure in here at the moment of 996 hectopascals, and the temperature is 27.16 degrees. Note that that is the temperature of the electronics as opposed to the process temperature. On the bottom screen, we have a number of options. We have built in a number of functions. For example, both leak test and safety tests are built in with pre-configured testing that one can do. So if you select leak test, we can put information about the operator name, the various functions, how long we want to wait at each test point, and we can export a report directly without any manual interface other than pushing start. Similar with a safety valve test. There's even a unit converter, which is quite useful. So if we hit unit conversion and we put in a pressure, let's say 32.5 kilopascals, and we can read it out in MPa bar, etc. And of course that works in all directions. We can put in a bar figure, 1 bar, and it will now read out in kPa. If we go to setup, we can see some of the amazing options that are here on the instrument for communication. It is a Bluetooth gauge, and there is free software available for both iOS and Android, such that you can view the data on the gauge remotely. So we have all the Bluetooth details there. Under personalization, there's a number of things we can do. For example, obviously we could do the standard things like language, turning the beep on and off, etc. But we can also do things like adjust the display orientation, so that if you're in a situation where a gauge is mounted sideways or upside down, we can change the whole setup so that we can still read it the correct way in a different configuration. It also has an option for wireless LAN, that is 802.11. So we can see that at the moment we're connected to the Homersham local Wi-Fi network, and we have the information there, and we can set up DHCP or a fixed IP address as one sees fit for your system. So just a couple of other quick features. If we touch directly on the pressure, we get into another menu where we can do things like set up the unit of measure directly, the resolution, This model, I mentioned it was a 686. This indicates that it has 6 decimal places, or at least 6 digits can be displayed at once. We can set up things like peak, turn on and off min, max, average. We can change the unit of measure, as I said, between all of the standard units of measure, plus there is the option to put in one's own custom units of measure. And we can also add filtering so that you can change the way the data is displayed. If you don't want numbers flicking over continually, we have things like average filter or a first order filter. Now this is not a Star Wars reference of the Evil Empire, but to me first order refers to a 3 dB per octave roll-off filter, so I can't tell you exactly what the first order is doing.